what makes a business stagnant, Mark?
Well, I think the owner that's satisfied with what they have is the greatest. You know, the people who go, we can stay small successfully, we don't need to grow, then they're going to stagnate. They're not going to attract good people, and they're not going to be able to make it happen. And those good people are what's going to propel you to your next opportunity. But who wants to work? I mean, we had Gary Head on here recently, and like he said, who wants to work for a company that says they don't want to grow? That's not a good place to be.
No.
Matt Woolley Podcast.
All right. Welcome to the latest edition of the Matt Woolley Podcast. Today's a special day for me. I have a very accredited gentleman that I think highly of.
Accredited.
Mark.
Funny.
Mark Zweig. Oh, real quick, please like and subscribe because, you know, that helps out everything. I have Mark Zweig. I have no idea where this is going to go, by the way, Mark, but it's a pleasure to have you.
Hey, I don't know where it's going to go either. You're such a wild and woolly guy, though. I'm sure it'll be fun, right?
Right.
I think we should call this the Wild and Woolly Podcast.
You know, I had a thought on that. Actually, I'm gonna take these
with that name. I mean, you can't beat it.
I had a thought to actually do that, but I was like, you know what? I don't want people to think, even though I am or can be a little zany, I don't want people to think it's like, yeah, you know, like it sounds very like, you know, morning. Nothing wrong with this, but you know that like the crazy, you know, morning DJ, you know, kind
like
of
the
things.
radio John Deek show.
Yeah. Hey, well, John and Deek's a good show, but you know.
Yeah.
There's some of those shows that are very good dudes, a long history too. But you know, there's some of those shows that are just kind of like, you know, it's constant, like, you know, it's like I don't want everybody to think that. We're trying to bring value here, Mark.
Okay, no problem.
Zaniness comes, but we're going to push. Try. You know how I feel about influencers today. I feel the same way you do, even though you're a cranky old man.
Yes, I am.
In your own words.
Yes. This is true. I am.
All right. All right. So let's get into who's Mark Zweig. Okay. So
get through that as fast as we can.
Let's do this. So Mark Zweig has been a bike mechanic and salesperson.
Yep.
The touring cyclist. He's been a senior associate at Michael Lattice and Associates.
Yep, that's right.
Principal Director of Project Development and Human Resources. You were in Human Resources?
Yes, I was.
Wow.
I actually wrote a book on it. It's published by Wiley in 1991.
Is that right?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Human Resources.
Well, let's get in that.
Complete guidebook.
Are you serious?
For architects and engineers, yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, so you're that for Pickering Firm.
Yep.
And then you're Director of Marketing and Human Resources again for Carter and Burgess. You were Executive Vice President for Practice Management Associates. You were in Vistage. You were a chair at Vistage for a time. You were outside director for Miyamoto International.
I still am.
All right.
I went back on their board after about a 10-year hiatus recently.
Nice.
So.
Founder and president of Mark Zweig, Inc.
Yep.
You, as we all know, you're the founder and partner, and you want to say it together? Big Talk About Small Business. Great podcast. Quick plug for Big Talk About Small Business, featuring Mark Zweig and Eric Howerton and an occasional guest, and I've been the privilege of being one of those. You're also founder and chairman of Zweig Group.
Yep.
You're investor, advisor, and CFO at Janus Motorcycles, which is pretty cool. And you're also an entrepreneur in residence at the University of Arkansas. Now, one thing I don't see here, which we touched on just for a split second, you are an author.
Yeah, I am. I've written.
How many books have you written?
I think 14 or 15.
Sweet Mother Mary.
Yeah, I don't know.
What are your books? I only know one.
Human Resources, the complete guidebook for design firms from Wiley in 91. Then I had a whole series called Management Ideas That Work. more management ideas that work, still more management ideas that work, even more management ideas that work. That was one. Then we had another series of management ideas. I'm trying to remember what that one was called. We had management from A to Zweig, two different versions of that. There was a book on strategic planning, and then I successful job search strategies for design professionals, and then the latest one was that's really the only mass market book I did, which is called Confessions of an Entrepreneur.
And that's a great book. So quick plug for Confessions of an Entrepreneur. I do have a signed version of that.
Ooh.
And
in about 5 years, you'll get like $2 for that on eBay.
Well, here's what I'm going to tell you. So as a guy that we're gonna, I knew this was going to be all over the place rather than the standard format I do, and that's great. We're shaking it up, Mark. But I will say, Confessions of an Entrepreneur. I can't. That was on my book reading list this year. I don't know if you saw that. Everybody has to do a LinkedIn post to show that they can read. And I decided.
I had a wide-ranging list.
I decided to get on that bandwagon. And as far as business books are concerned, I do want to give you praise to say that it is a great book, and honestly, one of my favorite business books. So,
well, thanks, man.
For several reasons.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, really. So truly, and anybody that's listening, it's Confessions of an Entrepreneur. If you're an entrepreneur, you really should get this book. And Mark has not paid me to say this. I'm going to be clear. I mean this from the heart.
I don't make any money on the book anyway, so no, you haven't been paid because I don't get paid. But U of A Press.
So here's what I'll say about it. So a couple of things, and then we'll get into the life of Mark. But it's a great book for several reasons. One, it's very to the point. So one of the biggest problems that I have with a lot of books, there's a lot of great books out there, but if you go back to explain this a little better, my cousin, who is also an entrepreneur, very successful now, retired businessman, sold off his business, made a lot of money. I asked him about reading material one time, and he said, Matt, you really need to go with a lot of the older books if you can find them. And I said, why is that? He said, because a lot of the principles haven't changed. He said they're very universal.
True.
And he said, but the great thing about the older books is they were more to the point for many reasons. But he said they're much shorter, impactful books. Like you did, more with less. And that has served me well in finding old, books. But the thing about your book, too, it's just the right amount. Truly, because like you get to the point, you give examples, this is what this means, and then you move on.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying when I say it's not rocket science, but after
it's not.
But after you explain it, you can get right to it. You know what I mean? It's not like one of these things where, you don't have to say, and that's the problem that I have with a lot of modern books. You'll buy a book and you first chapter, and you're like, all right, here we are, we're cooking. This is good advice. And then the next 3 chapters are literally the regurgitated thing from the first chapter, just spun over and over again to fill pages. And then it becomes an annoyance and you lose interest. Let's get to the point, make it happen. So there's tons of great advice in Confessions of an Entrepreneur, from starting out to, capital to, board, having a board, you name it. It's all in there, and it doesn't apply, everything doesn't apply to everyone.
No.
But there's tons of wisdom nuggets that can apply to any business, and so that's why I give you the plug. All right, so
thank you.
I'm going to quit bragging on you, and let's get into the Mark life. So,
gosh,
where are you from?
Originally from Kirkwood, Missouri, man.
Kirkwood, Missouri.
It's outside St. Louis, right off Highway 44.
Is that country or suburb?
It's bedroom community. It's what I'd call a bedroom community.
What's a bedroom community?
It's a town it's an individual town that had its own identity, and eventually it got swallowed up in the metro area. But it was there from the Civil War era.
Oh, okay.
Train came from St. Louis through Kirkwood.
Gotcha.
And it was Anytown, USA. I mean, it was a great place to grow up. 30,000 people, big high school. You knew everybody in town. I lived in the downtown area, which was great. Everybody who went to the high school passed by my house on the way to school.
That's awesome.
And I worked at the bike shop that was 3 or 4 blocks away from my house. And it was,
That's great.
we had all kinds of people live there. There were rich people, there were poor people, there were white people, there were black people. It was just a great place because, just a true, like I say, Anytown, USA. Now, today, you go to Kirkwood, it's all affluence. The average house is $900K, and they're buying houses and tearing them down and building mansions on the lot. Everybody wants to live there because it has a viable downtown. That's the whole neo-urban movement. This is just the plain sort of quasi-urban movement. People don't want the alienation of suburban living. They want to live in a town where they know people.
Yeah.
People walk to places.
You want to go where everybody knows your name.
Yeah, exactly. Cheers. Yeah, that's it. That's for sure. So anyway, that's what Kirkwood was like. It was a great place to grow up, and I was lucky to be there and had a good high school education. And
so what transitioned from there? So did you go? I didn't see it on the thing, and I apologize.
No, that's all right. No.
I know. Well, I left my list at home. Everybody that's listening to the show knows that I got usually a list, so I had to read from LinkedIn. So what's the next step for Mark after that?
Well, I worked a lot in junior high and high school, and I made a lot of money. I mean, I was like the richest kid of all my friends. I could go out to eat all the time. I had 3 cars, 2 bikes.
Wow.
I think my senior year in high school, I had 16 cars.
How are you pulling so much dough?
Working in bike shops. I just got really good at it. I got recruited. At first, I worked for a single owner shop. Then I went to a guy that had 4 shops. Then I went to a guy who had 10 stores eventually.
Oh, wow.
And he was very entrepreneurial. He was from West Memphis, Arkansas. He became one of my business mentors. And so I was lucky. I worked for some really good people, and they valued what I did. And I was willing to work my ass off. And so, I did really well working in bike shops. I mean, I was making like $600 or $700 a week in high school. And my first job out of undergraduate school with a degree in business, I got offered $8,800 a year. So just to give you a sense of, this is a while back.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, worth a little more than I was.
Yeah, and when I got my MBA, I started out at $12,000 a year.
Whoa, when was this?
That was 1980.
God.
So anyway, so I went from there to Southern Illinois University in Carbondale, which was very much like Fayetteville when I came here 20 years ago. It's a big state school. We were the number 2 school in the state. U of I was bigger and more prominent. SIU is where you went if you didn't have as good of grades. But it was close. I actually got accepted to both of them. I did not want to go to Columbia or KU, where all my friends, if they went to school, and most of my friends were not college material. Okay. Although they all became successful.
That's great.
I mean, it's sort of fascinating. Like, my parents didn't necessarily approve of a lot of my friends. They thought they were just a bunch of gearheads and losers. And they turned out to be business owners and very successful.
I tell people that all the time. Well, no, I tell people all the time, it's the biggest, and I don't understand it, because here's the thing, I have an appreciation for both. Yeah, I'm very pro-education. I don't have a college degree, though. Right. And I had a great career in banking, been blessed to have a great career in design science, too. And, but what does get under my skin is like, when people look to that piece of paper as if it's proof of success, and that there's something to be said for it, but that doesn't always translate. And again, I am not ragging on education.
Of course.
I still love to learn new things all the time.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. It's a continuing, you never stop learning.
My dad had no college, but I guarantee you he had the equivalent of a PhD in all kinds of subjects because he was self-educated.
Mm-hmm.
He read constantly.
Mm-hmm. I don't think college too really prepares you, man, for like you're not going to learn everything there is to know in a semester.
No,
you have to. It's a great foundation.
Exactly. It's just one thing. It's one way to go, but it's not the only way. I mean, I think a lot of times guys like you who did not finish their degrees, I've found are more motivated and feel like they have to prove themselves through their actual performance more than saying, here's my piece of paper, I'm entitled to be successful.
Oh,
go in with that.
You
know what I mean?
There is truth be known, in my younger days, I would literally get these looks when I was in, now don't get me wrong, I wasn't like a senior vice president, but for a young guy, I had worked myself up in my banking career in a short pace. And I remember I would go to like meetings or like functions, like, what school did you go to? And I'm like, oh, I didn't. And they look at me like I was from Mars.
It's like, how could you be here?
Right, how can I be here? And I was like, dude, I'm just trying to outperform everybody. And so, anyway, so moving forward, always great. We ain't gonna get anything done, Mark. Not me and you. We're always. I'm looking at the time already. I'm like, we hadn't even touched the tip of the iceberg. Okay, so moving forward. So
went to school in Carbondale.
Yes.
Okay, had a lot of jobs. Everything. Had my own business right away, selling cars out of a junkyard. Made a deal with the local junkyard owner, worked for bike shops, ended up going to work for the local/regional newspaper as assistant to the circulation manager. I sold him a 65 Mustang, and he liked me. And so I had that job. Then another buddy of mine and I, along with the help of a finance professor there who was a crazy guy, we started a used motorcycle shop and Indian moped franchise that we had. Did that. So, a lot of different things. And then in grad school, I got a free ride there and I became a grad assistant and working 20 hours a week for 2 different professors, which was a great learning experience. One of them still a friend of mine today. The other one got killed by his TA the year after I left, stabbed to death.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, pretty wild story. Not a very well-liked guy. but I had the pleasure of working with him. And anyway, so yeah, a lot of different things. And then I got out of school. I went to work for this company, Michael Lattice and Associates. I thought I wanted to be an architect when I was a kid, but I got seduced away by the world of business. And it sort of allowed me to integrate my interest in design with business. They were a consulting firm that served the construction and real estate development industry, had occasional opportunities to work with architects and engineers, but they didn't like them. They didn't think they'd made decisions quickly enough or were freewheeling as the developers and contractors were. I gravitated to that group of clients and built a little business inside there that it really impacted my career path from that point on. I stayed in the architecture and engineering industry one way or another as, an owner in several of these companies that I worked in. And then the company that Zweig Group today eventually became the leading management consulting and research firm serving the AE industry in the nation, maybe even the world. Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So, that was my sort of primary business that really propelled my success. And
did you know that it was going to be at the time, like when you first started?
No. Why, did you know your business was going to be what is today?
No.
At the time?
Well, I've said the answer is no, but you'd be surprised. You talk to some people, like they say, I had a gut feeling, like I was on to something, or they say, year 4, I realized this has more potential than what, but in most cases, it's like there's an ebb and flow there,
The first thing I wanted to do, Matt, was make a living so I could support my family.
Yeah. No, I mean,
that was number one. It's like they got to eat, and I was unemployed. So,
yeah, good call.
That was the driver. I mean, it's like a lot of businesses. I think once you're out there, and you're doing it, then you start seeing where the opportunities are.
Yeah, you have to keep your eyes peeled, and you have to stay, refreshed in your work, and you have to always be looking for that gap.
Yeah.
It's an ebb and flow. Like the business that was Design Signs at the beginning is not even close to what it was when it started, and it probably won't be in another 10 years if it's in the good Lord will to keep going.
Right,
So it's
right.
like, and so I think it's people that aren't. Well, actually, let me not make this statement. What makes a business stagnant, Mark?
Well, I think the owner that's satisfied with what they have is the greatest. The people who go, we can stay small successfully, we don't need to grow, then they're going to stagnate. They're not going to attract good people, and they're not going to be able to make it happen. And those good people are what's going to propel you to your next opportunity. But who wants to work? I mean, we had Gary Head on here recently, and like he said, who wants to work for a company that says they don't want to grow? That's not a good place to be.
No, absolutely. There's a
lot of things that lead to stagnation, though.
Oh yeah. What would be number two?
Well, no marketing. I mean, I just see it over and over. I mean, you're in the business of providing that. I mean, you know how many small businesses and privately held companies they don't believe in marketing. They don't consistently fund it, and they pay sporadic attention to it. And only when they feel like they need it, it's the kiss of death. It's got to be a consistent part of every single thing that you do.
You have to have to put yourself out there if you want to be seen, right? What would be number three?
Of why they stagnate? I think no real differentiation. Just doing the same thing other people do. Following best practices. That's always been one of my favorites. It's like best practices mean you do everything like everybody else. That's, most of us work in mature markets. Whatever our business is, the majority of us are in a business where there's a lot of other players, right? You've got to differentiate yourself. You've got to be doing something that they can't get from somebody else, I think, to be successful. And if you're just doing what everybody else does, then you run the risk of all you can do is be the cheapest, right? That's not any way to be successful.
No, not at all. Not at all. So we're gonna blend today a little bit just because I want to, and I know that you can.
I'm ADD. I can shift gears.
Well, I know you can. I've been in a few conversations with you. So I'm just going to start unloading business stuff on it. This is more of the stuff that you guys talk again with small talk about big business. I mean, big talk about small business. Sorry, I do that all the time. But it's, hey, but you can have big talk about small business and small talk about big business, can't you, Mark?
Sure can. We'll do whatever you want. It's your podcast. It's your show.
All right. So we talk about stagnation. So let's talk about culture.
Yeah.
What is the culture warrior that is Mark Zweig? Where do we stand there?
The culture warrior that's me, or how I want to implement my culture in my business?
Everything. Let's talk about culture. It's open-ended.
Well, I mean, okay, I'll say this. I think we live in a sick culture. I hate to be so negative, but I think celebrity status, no matter what you do, even if it's bad, is motivational to so many people because they're so alienated. And I do feel like that's why we have like mass shootings or whatever. If you want to talk about the culture, I mean, I think that our attention spans are too short. We live in cultural echo chambers. The mass media and social media all reinforce that. And we're becoming less and less tolerant of people who don't think and act exactly like we do.
That's dangerous.
It's dangerous. It leads to, fragmentation. We're all should be on the same team here. Okay. So, that's sort of what I think about the culture. In spite of that, I'm a parent like you. I mean, I got 5 daughters.
Oh yeah, 5 daughters.
Yeah.
Wow.
You care about.
You poor guy.
Yeah. You care about the world they're going to grow up in. You want to try to be the best parent you can in spite of this culture that we're in, which values appearance and money and celebrity status in spite of not doing anything. I mean, to me, like the worst example of it is the Kardashians.
I'm with you. I'm right there with you.
They've never done anything good for anybody, and yet they're celebrities that make millions and millions of dollars a year. They're celebrities by being celebrities.
I look at that group.
Okay.
I look at that group of people, and I say, if you, as a whole, now I'm not saying they haven't or can do nice things for people, but most of the stuff that they get attention for is being pretty vile.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and,
it's true.
And it's amazing to me how much people pull from that. And there's, I get worried. Like this is what I refer to, and we're fixing to get on a subject that'll probably ruin the rest of the podcast because we won't get time because I know how me and you talk about things. It's kind of what. I refer to as, remember when The Bachelor first was coming out? So I was in banking, and there was a woman that I worked with, and she had a very young daughter who was almost 4.
Right.
And look, I'm not dissing anybody that ever watched The Bachelor. Now, I was obviously not a fan. But what alarmed me was there was a group of women talking about what had happened the night before. And obviously this was designed to rile people up. It's designed for entertainment. We get all that.
Right.
But what I was worried about was these were all grown women that should understand the ways of the world to a degree. That little girl was in the middle of that conversation and she was a pretty smart little girl. But she was playing a part in the conversation with these other women, and she could tell you what was going on in the show, and obviously her mom let her watch it. My immediate thought was, is this what she thinks how you
It's normal.
How you find love?
Right.
Or like, you know what I mean?
No, exactly.
And so
it's not good.
Yeah, it's not good.
Right.
And that it is that same sort of thing right now. And I know we're going to segue into a hot topic, but the reason I started this podcast was because I wanted to bring accredited individuals, talk to them, and hopefully we pull some wisdom nuggets out of it for those that listen.
Yes.
And I know you guys are doing the same thing on Big Talk.
Yeah.
And so,
we're trying to.
Yeah, well, but here's the thing. You and I both agree, and I know we do because I've seen you ranting something social about it, but I feel the same way. There's so many guys out there that are influencing people, and they're feeding people's ear holes, and they're not accredited.
I agree.
To be.
I know. Yeah. Why are we listening to them?
Right.
Why are they credible? I mean, it's a huge problem. People don't make that distinction. They don't consider what the source of the information is.
And
they're getting.
They love them because they hear a lot of stuff that they want to hear. And I think that there's a problem that today where, and I know this sounds horrible. No, don't get me wrong. I think work culture should be an environment of uplifting, and it should be an environment of trying to everyone move forward, and everybody being on the same team, and people feeling great about where they're at. Okay,
right,
120%.
That's the goal.
That is. But at the end of the day, we're all here to work.
I know,
and nothing is perfect. But what I'm starting to find and see sometimes, and I've seen a little bit of it with some of the younger people I've worked with over the past few years, and I hear a lot of stories from other guys I know in business where there's this just, because of all of these horrible influencers, they have set psychological hurdles up. They don't realize it, but they've set up psychological hurdles to the people that are listening. The people that are listening, I say, don't realize it.
Yes.
And so I've heard stories of guys that if they're not getting, a 3-figure salary with full insurance paid and 3 weeks vacation or whatever, I hear these stories of people like, I'm underappreciated, and you're this is a stagnant business, and that you don't care about me or my future well-being. That's not true.
I know.
But what I have never heard is I've never heard an entrepreneur murmur the same thing.
Yeah. I saw a poll recently that was something related to, like the work environment or whatever, and it gave choices. And the point of it was, my question was, how many of those people are business owners and how many of them are employees? Mm-hmm. Because you're going to get a totally different, it was like, who works on the weekend or vacation? Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you respond to calls and emails?
I never quit working.
I never did either. Okay. I mean, it's just, so yeah, the poll didn't mean anything to me, because it's like, okay, well, if you're an employee and you decide you're going to shift out, that's one thing. But if you're the one that owns the business, you're probably going to be less likely to do that.
I recently had a situation that was brought to my attention about the word toxic. Mm-hmm. Environment got thrown around, and so I decided that I was going to Google what a toxic environment is. Let's just pull it out, shall we?
Let's do
this. I have to tell you. So I'm in agreement with some of this, but it's subjective. Like,
I saw a really great post on this recently on LinkedIn. Okay, and this whole question.
Okay. A toxic work environment is one where negative behaviors are so ingrained that they become the norm. So I can agree with that statement, but again,
what's considered negative?
Correct.
Yeah.
It's all subjective.
Right.
And so, all right, so toxic work environments can lead to, and this is true, that when people don't feel good about the code, they can lack of productivity, lack of trust, high stress levels, infighting, discrimination, employee attrition, and harm to employee mental and physical health. Okay. Literally, three of these things here could be attributed to one person, but it doesn't, that one apple doesn't ruin the whole orchard kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like high stress levels. Like I look back and I'm like, high stress levels. I'm like, we work in retail. Retail is stressful. You know why retail is stressful? Because when Walmart says jump, you say how high, you go 2 feet higher and 2 days sooner. That's how you win.
Exactly.
And so, and that's how anybody, that's demand.
What worth doing is not stressful.
Correct.
If it's not stressful, everybody would do it, and then it's not going to be very valuable.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So yeah, I hear you there.
And then there's like, say for instance, like the infighting and discrimination. Okay. So, and maybe I'm not saying this, but maybe I am underplaying this a little bit, but like discrimination. So I'm not talking about racial discrimination.
Yeah.
Like as individuals, we discriminate every day. Like if some guy comes up to my house and says, "Hey, can I come on in?" I'm going to be a little,
Who are you?
Yeah. I don't know you. If I don't know you, but if I know you, come on in.
Yeah. Right. Or who's a high performer and who isn't?
And I'm going to make a point of this.
Yeah.
Infighting too. So infighting.
Right.
Infighting. So yes, in workplaces, people get into it and they don't like, the boss telling the orders, or they don't like their supervisor, or they disagree with this or they disagree with that. Mm-hmm. So I will say that all of these seem to be, negative things, right? But it's kind of subjective. And here's why I say,
you're right.
These guys that start feeding into some of these influencers, if they have one little you have to look at the whole picture of things. They have a couple little riffs with a guy that they disagree with. They didn't get their way. All of a sudden, is that what
A toxic work environment.
Yes, I mean, and I see that.
No,
I see
you're
that
right,
happen.
man. You're absolutely right.
And now I can agree with this: bullying,
Sure.
manipulation, absolutely.
Bad.
Yelling,
Yeah.
not good. That does happen on occasion. People get flustered, but people aren't.
People get excited.
People aren't perfect.
Yeah.
Disrespect, non-exclusivity, unethical behavior, cutthroat behavior, and abusive behavior. Yeah, I would say all of those.
They're toxic.
That's toxic.
I would agree.
100%.
Yes.
But the question is do you have enough? Does the person have enough sense to actually realize what they have?
Yeah.
And do they actually realize the thing as a whole? Are they being sensitive? Or are they looking for an excuse to call it toxic? Does that make sense?
It makes total sense to me. I mean, I never really thought about it, but I think the ultimately it comes down to how badly do you want to be successful?
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Mm-hmm. What are you willing to do? Whether you're an employee or a business owner,
Mm-hmm.
you can be an employee and act like an owner, and you probably do pretty damn well at whatever it is you do, right?
Yeah.
But how badly do you want that? And so if you do, then you will tolerate stress, put yourself in situations where you don't know that you're going to succeed, but you're trying. You're going to work more hours than 40 hours a week because you're engaged. You're going to be responsive during the times that you're not, quote, at work. Okay, all those things. And then some people call that, oh, it's a toxic work environment. No. You just want to get ahead. You're going the extra yard. You're putting yourself in stress. You're working hard.
There's another great, there's another great point that, on another thing that I saw that I read, they were saying a toxic work environment, one of the attributes could be that you work through lunches or you work past 5. That was another one. Or another one was you work on a weekend. So like, you literally described the first 3 years of Design Steins as a toxic.
Of course.
I mean, that was like, so,
I'm almost 67 years old, Matt. Do you think I don't ever work at night or on weekends?
Right. I'll respond. I take phone calls at
There's
night.
things I want to do. Of course.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it doesn't mean I'm in a toxic work environment.
No, it doesn't.
It means I'm engaged with my work.
Correct.
I'm trying to get something done. I enjoy it.
Right. Yeah. That's exactly.
I want to accomplish.
That's
something.
exactly it. Like, and here's the thing too. It's like, some people prefer to work through a lunch. Some people prefer to get things done. There are people that know, and I'm one of them. Like, unless I have been asked to be a part of a lunch meeting or initiated one.
Yeah.
I'm eating in about 10 minutes while I'm typing an email, and then I move on. I'm trying to be productive.
Of course.
That's no ragging to anybody else that wants to take a.
But
I just.
And an hour lunch. I mean, I get where you're going though with all this. Where you're going with this is that a picture has been painted that is not accurate of what life is going to be like if you want to be successful. That's the problem. And when those people end up in your organization and they start saying it's a toxic environment, they can pollute the minds of other people and reduce the output and productivity of the whole thing. The culture goes awry in the company. Isn't that where we're going with this discussion?
That's basically it. And sometimes people just can't see the forest for the trees. And I've had certain circumstances too where I say I have not experienced this one as of yet. Sometimes people just aren't a good fit, and I have had that.
Sure.
But in other cases, I've had people, calling out issues, or I've heard stories of friends where their employees are like they're just stuck like a dog with a bone on like, this isn't fair and I'm being underappreciated. Then they go somewhere else.
And they find out, hey,
this wasn't so bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of it is, like you said, people have no perspective.
Yeah.
I had so many jobs before I got my first, quote, real job, where you just did whatever you had to do and all the crappy work as low man on the totem pole. You know what I mean?
No, I get it.
All that's good training. We were talking about that the other day, my wife and I, about how people need to work in restaurants and other like low-level service jobs where they have to interact with people because they're all on their phones and they don't have any face-to-face interaction anymore. It's a real problem. And maybe that's good training for them. So when they get out there in the, quote, real world.
I 100% believe it is. I grew up doing I always wanted money when I was younger because I didn't have any.
Me too, man.
And I was willing, if if I think I could do it, I wasn't beyond trying to get it done. Like from the age of really 10, I was like, how can I do this? I've shelled pigs. I have done different farm work. I've worked in, like a chicken,
Nothing
chicken
worse
farm.
than that.
Oh, dude, it's horrible.
And,
Dude, ammonia and crap. That. I mean, I've waited tables. I worked in a painter shop.
Exactly.
Yeah, and
this is all the stuff that prepares you.
Right. And you gradually come to realize what you're capable of and what and what you can do and what a good job is, what a good position is. And you can't never really forget that, because I think forgetting that's death. And I think that, and I've had two bouts of it between my career transition of from banking to what would become design science. I did all kinds of stuff. I did music promotion. I built cabinets. I ran plumbing. I did electrical. You name it, man. And I did it.
I've done every trade myself. I understand.
I did it because it allows your mind to work while you're doing it. It reminds you to kind of figure out. But it's also a great reminder. Now, I'm not beyond making cabinets again if I have to make cabinets, okay?
I am with you.
And now, my preference would be no, because it's really hard work. It's a different strain.
Yes. Yes.
But I think I wish everybody had that. I have met individuals that have never had any sort of background like that. All they've done is basically they've never been made to work, or a few that they've worked a handful of jobs. They went to school and then they got out and they started on their career path. And I wish, I've met guys that have never had to dig a 5-foot hole.
Listen,
or dig a trench.
Matt, one of the worst employees I ever hired was a guy who had a degree from Stanford and Harvard. Two different degrees.
Wow.
He was the most entitled guy I've ever seen in my life. He would not, and he was paid very well. He was going to work so many hours. There were so many things he wouldn't do. So I totally get what you're saying. I mean, it's a problem. But what are we going to do? We work in this culture. We've got to find people to work for us, right?
Yeah.
They're not all going to make it. I mean, I do think, we've got to give people honest feedback. We've got to lay the expectations out. We've got to be honest enough with them to say, if you want to get ahead, you got to do A, B, C, and D. It's not this other idea of not doing anything that's stressful or takes extra time or whatever. And then we've got to be sure that when people do that, we actually reward them differently from those who do, who don't, rather.
Well, in the rewarding process, in the rewarding process, let me ask you this. Are you secretive of reward? Are you very open on reward? Or are you somewhere in between? I've heard both takes on it.
I don't think you should publish what everybody's salary is.
Right. Oh,
okay.
100%.
It's just going to create problems. Although there are some states now, like New York, when you run an ad, and I know this because I'm on the board of a company in New York City. It's not on my dossier there, but it's J.P. Morgan's great-great-grandson's company. And whenever we advertise for a job, we have to show the high and the low salaries of everybody in that job posting.
Oh, wow.
Okay, not by individual, but we have to list it.
What's your take on that?
Terrible. I hate it.
Yeah.
Just makes people unhappy.
Right.
When they find out, oh, man, somebody makes 20 grand more than I do. What? So I hate it. But my thing on rewards, I think if you look at the typical business, they don't look at people's salaries often enough. I never was married to a schedule. If you did a great job, I could give you 5 raises in a year if I felt like it. Okay. I'm not going to be once a year we look at you and then that's it till the next year. So I'm a big believer in that. And I'm also a big believer in open book management, sharing the financial performance, and tying everybody in the firm, if they're there, into the profitability. In my case, I'm always concerned about cash, so I'll say cash basis P&L. Everybody in the company is going to benefit from that. I'm going to be totally open there. And that way it builds trust with management.
Do you ever run into experience in being so open? Do you ever run into one of those situations where, oh my gosh, I'm just making some up. Oh my gosh, we did like $2 million last month, and I'm over here making peanuts. This is crap.
Yeah, you do. Let me tell you, though, if you don't share the information, that all still exists, and it's even worse. They have an inflated idea. This has actually been studied.
Oh, has it?
Yes. So there's research out there.
I know this is in your book. This is in your book.
There are employees who, if you don't share any information and you're doing well in your company, they all think you're doing far better than you are. And if you're not doing well, they all think you're doing far worse than you are. So it goes both ways. So let's just tell them what we're doing and how it all works out and what the numbers mean and why we need to hit certain goals so that a greater number of people understand what we're trying to do with this business and operate and behave accordingly. So ignorance doesn't solve the problem of the person feeling like they're not.
So I want to ask this question.
Being
So
appreciated or taken care of.
let me ask this question, follow up to that. So,
Okay.
how many, you know a lot of people, you help a lot of people,
Sure.
you understand a lot of businesses all around. How many people would you say are as open and transparent?
Very few. 5% business owners, if that.
That's why do you think that is?
I think it's two things. It's either fear of letting your people see that you're not as successful as you maybe appear to be, that they'll lose respect for you, or more often than not, fear that your people will see that you make too much. And they're afraid that they'll be demotivated when they find out how much money that the owners are actually making from the business. I think those are the two big drivers. And then the other one is, they wouldn't understand it. They wouldn't understand it. You hear a lot of that from business owners. It's like, well, sure, they won't understand it if you don't tell them, if you don't educate them, if they don't see it over and over and over, of course they won't understand it. It's essential, though, if we want to have a transition at any point, whether we sell internally to the employees and get out, or we sell to an external buyer and get out, they're going to want to see that somebody's there besides the founder who understands the business. So we better be educating these people, or we're creating traps for ourselves. And I see a lot of small business owners in that trap. I've worked with them, my whole career. When people call you up and they're 60, 70, 80 years old, I don't have anybody you can take over. Now I need you to go find somebody to buy my company. Okay? It's like, great. Everybody's going to flock to buy this company now. You got cancer, you went through a divorce, you're completely unmotivated at this point, and you think somebody's going to come along and pay you a whole bunch of money for your business with nobody back there besides you who knows how to run it? Good luck. Okay. Good luck.
Let's switch gears real quick.
Yeah.
How do we do this, Mark? An hour has gone by almost. I mean, there's so much. There's so much. Okay.
So much stuff to
but
talk
I've thoroughly enjoyed this. You said the word demotivate. So, two questions. What demotivates ownership? That's the first question.
That's a big one. What demotivates ownership? And that's a really serious question. I mean, sometimes it is that they're burnout. They've worked too hard. The business is everything to them. Their whole identity is wrapped up in it. And if something negative happens, it rocks their world. They have nothing else to fall back on, if that makes sense. And I'm not talking about financially either. Like fall back on a really good supportive spouse and family that you take. Fall back on, hey, I got this hobby over here that is something I'm really interested in, and I get a lot of gratification out of. Fall back on, I've got all these relationships over here that are outside the business, that I don't define my whole existence based on the success of this one business. So I do think that's a really big thing that demotivates owners. But I do think other things demotivate owners, and they don't have a good partner in the business that they can talk to, that they can rely on. They don't have faith that their people are as motivated and care as much as they do about the business. Now, I'm not going to say they haven't created a lot of these situations, or they got financial problems, I mean, the business can't provide what they need financially outside of the business. You know what I mean? My overhead's just too high. This business just can't support it, so they get demotivated. They think, I got to have a different business, or I got to do something different. Any of those things. What do you think?
I would agree with all those points. I also, as an owner, I can say I've experienced some of those. By the way, I would say too.
I have too.
It's always a live and learn, and you just try not to repeat it. I think another one too is having the appropriate feeling like you've got the appropriate confidence of your staff, and not because you haven't been trying to be proactive. It's just there's disruption. There's something that seems to be keeping that from gelling. I've had that happen too. I've had and I think that a lot of the things that you're alluding to are. I know are basically a cause and effect of bad practice or bad habit in most cases.
Yeah,
I would agree. That channel.
Yeah, I would agree with
it's something like the bad partnership thing. I wouldn't speak ill of the guy that I started Design Steins with, but there was a path in the road where all of a sudden there was kind of you could tell we were going two different directions.
Right.
And so
that can be a great source of conflict and demotivation.
Oh, it 100% is. It 100% is. It can create a big ripple, and it did for a long time, and we didn't address it, and that's a problem.
Yeah, it is.
But we could spend a lot more time on the ownership. Let's talk about real quick. I want the second question too.
Okay.
What demotivates employees?
I think there's a lot of things. I mean, I think if they feel like the owner is not that committed to the business, that's demotivational for them, and doesn't have confidence in the future and the direction that the business is taking. I think if they see other people there who are not working as hard or don't care like they do, and those people are tolerated, super demotivational to your best people. Okay? I think if they feel like other people are being rewarded who don't have the same intentions and performance they have, that's demotivational for them. I mean, people want to learn. If they don't feel like they're learning and developing, that's demotivational. There are a lot of things, too much bureaucracy, too many meetings, too many steps to go through to make doing their job painful instead of natural. That's demotivational. There's a lot of things. I do think that as an employer, it's easier to hire people who are highly motivated and try to not demotivate them than it is to hire people who aren't that motivated and try to motivate them, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah, makes total sense.
I don't find that the latter succeeds very often. I've got to start with really highly motivated people and then just avoid turning them off. I think is a better path. than trying to turn average people into rock stars.
What is Mark Zweig's? Sorry, I keep wanting to mispronounce your name. Mark Zweig. What is Mark Zweig's? What is in his motivational black book?
Oh gosh, what's in my what motivates me?
Well, yeah.
Or
Yeah. Let's take it further. We got a little over 5 minutes. What motivates Mark, and how does Mark motivate people?
what motivates me is trying to do something. I like building. I like improving.
Mm-hmm.
I've done it with old cars. I've done it with old houses. I've done it with businesses that were acquired, businesses I invested in, businesses I went to work for as a consultant or employee. I'm all about improvement.
Mm-hmm.
I like to see things better.
Mm-hmm.
I like them to look better. I like them to function better. I like them to I like to create value out of something that seemed to have no value. Mm-hmm. That's my greatest motivation right there. In business, the other thing is I love creating good jobs for people. I love seeing people be successful.
Mm-hmm.
If you talk about how I motivate people, I do it by recognizing them, by trying to appreciate what they do well and not not holding that back for a freaking formal performance appraisal, which I think most of those systems are just BS totally. Okay.
Uh-huh.
I'm all about immediate feedback and relationships with people so they know that I care about them as an individual.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's how you motivate people. I think you give them an opportunity to do jobs that they're unqualified for.
Mm-hmm.
That's motivational.
Mm-hmm.
I think you paint the picture of where you can go, where this business could go, and how that's going to benefit them individually and make their life better.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big part of how you motivate people. You got to have a real vision that you're out there constantly restating and explaining how that's going to help people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but this is a big deal. I mean, as you said, I mean, I work with one company now where, I'm a minor owner in it, and you got a big group of people that have been used to doing things a certain way. And you're trying to get them to realize that if we change the way we operate in 2 or 3 years, you could be making twice as much money as you are right now. Maybe you could make 3 times as much money. That's going to change your life dramatically.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Absolutely.
It's going to be, you're going to create a whole new scenario for what you can do for your family if you do that. And getting people to believe in that it's not an easy task.
Mm-hmm.
It's really not. They're skeptical. You said it before. They're very skeptical. They don't all believe that you're going to be able to pull that off. It takes a lot of selling. Shucking and jiving, baby.
Shucking and jiving.
That's
awesome.
It does, though, doesn't it?
We've got to design you a T-shirt for sure. Mark Zweig, shucking and jiving.
That's what we used to call it.
That's awesome.
Selling cars or whatever, shucking and jiving.
Shucking and jiving.
But you've got to be a seller. You got to be an evangelist. It's not just, we're going to make this amount of profit this year. That doesn't get anybody excited. It's where can you go? What is your job going to be like? What is your life going to be like? You're going to be doing more of what you're good at, less of what you're not good at. You're going to feel like a winner when you come here every day because you're on a winning team. I mean, all that is part of it. That's how we've got to do that. I think as the owners, founders, or as Eric calls them. We just had a really good conversation about this. He says you've got your campaigners and you've got your operators. You're going to be the campaigner.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm the woo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've got to be.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right, last question because we have time for it. Mark, what is your greatest joy in your entrepreneurial journey?
My greatest joy is seeing other people be successful. I mean, and feel like they're more in control of their lives than they would be if they worked somewhere else, or if, and that could be other business owners, or it could be people that work in your organization, other business owners that you've helped. But, in my case, I'm lucky enough to be a college professor. So I work with a lot of young people, and I see them over time. And I see, like right now, I'm dealing with one of my former students who's had 3 jobs in like the last year and a half that haven't worked out. Like his last company didn't get their Series B funding, and things were going great there, but they just fired everybody, He's very discouraged right now. I'd like to see that guy be in business for himself. I keep telling these people, you want to go to corporate America? Yeah, it's tempting. They're going to pay you $100,000 and give you a car or whatever. Sounds great, doesn't it? You can get fired at any time due to no fault of your own.
Yeah, that's the thing. Okay. Well, that I will finish with that one. That's 100%. So I tell everybody, and there's nothing wrong with corporate jobs if that's what you want. There's nothing wrong with being an entrepreneur or somewhere in between. But I love how people have this idea that they can elude fate if they work for a large guy. And that's not the case. Like, I've had one guy tell me, it's like, man, I really envy you. I don't know how you do it, which there is a lot of strain to be an entrepreneur. But he said, man, I could just never take that kind of risk. And I just looked at him. I said, dude,
take a risk.
You're taking a risk every day.
Exactly.
You're putting your faith that you're going to come in tomorrow and your job is secure, and it doesn't work that way.
I always say, when you work somewhere, it's like you're self-employed, but you got one client or one customer.
Yeah.
Never a good position for any business.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay?
That's great.
Devalues the business. But, you talk about what gives me the greatest satisfaction. I mean, 2 nights ago, I just showed my wife a picture of one of my former students on LinkedIn with his insurance agency. He's got 30 some odd employees right now.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Good for him.
I was buying T-shirts from him when he got out of school because he was the marketing sales guy for a T-shirt company. So I ordered my T-shirts for my company through him. Now he's got freaking 30 employees.
That's great.
Okay. Great. And I'm like, look at this guy, honey. This makes me really feel good. Seeing him do this, and all these people that worked for him and all his families he's supporting now. I mean, that's fantastic. That makes it all worthwhile. I don't work at the Walton College for the money. I work there for the satisfaction of seeing these people succeed. They don't all do it. It's not a straight line path. A lot of them have a lot of setbacks. They go work somewhere, 2 or 3 or 4 jobs or whatever. And then when you see them break out on their own and you see them be successful after that, wow, that's fantastic.
That's great. Well, Mark, we're out of time. But as always, it's a pleasure. And I thank you for coming on. You'll come on again, won't you?
Oh, I'd love to be. I mean, Matt, you and I have so much to talk about.
Absolutely.
We won't run out. We could do this.
No, we could do this for hours.
Yeah.
And still not have enough time.
No.
Mark, thank you.
Thanks a lot, Matt.